General Vexthor's mandibles clicked with amusement as he reviewed the tactical report on his neural display. The human fleet hung motionless in space before them, a pathetic collection of metal scraps that barely qualified as warships. His crimson, compound eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction as he transmitted his thoughts to the bridge crew of the Eternal Dominion. "Look at them," Vexthor's voice resonated through the cavernous bridge, his forearms gesturing dismissively at the holographic display. Primitive kinetic weapons, crude chemical propulsion, armor plating that my hatchlings could pierce with, their mandibles. The assembled officers, each representing different conquered species from across the hegemony, chittered and growled their agreement. The Zephyrian War Council had been unanimous. Humanity would fall within hours. Their ships carried none of the plasma cannons that had razed the crystal cities of Altair Prime. No gravity manipulators that had crushed the floating gardens of Kepler 442b. Not even the basic energy shields that every civilized species had, developed millennia ago. "Sir," Communications Officer Thrillax reported, his serpentine form coiled around his station. "The humans are requesting parley." "Parley?" Vexthor's laugh was a sound like grinding metal. "What could these mammals possibly offer us besides their surrender?" He paused dramatically, savoring the moment. Throughout his career, he had conquered 47 star systems, enslaved 33 species, and reduced 12 worlds to molten slag. This would be his easiest victory yet. "Open the channel," he commanded. "Let's hear what these primitives have to say." The main display shimmered, revealing the bridge of the human flagship. A woman in a simple blue uniform stood at its center, her graying hair pulled back severely, her pale eyes cold as the void between stars. She looked remarkably unremarkable for a fleet admiral. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force," she said without preamble. "You have entered human space without permission and threatened our colonies. Withdraw immediately and no harm will come to you." The entire bridge erupted in various forms of alien laughter. Vexthor's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a grin among his species. "Admiral Chen," he began, savoring each syllable. "I am General Vexthor of the Zephyrian hegemony. I have conquered more worlds than your species has discovered. Your ships, if we can call them that, are armed with what my archives indicate are railguns and missiles, chemical explosives and simple kinetic projectiles." He leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Did your species never discover energy weapons? Are you truly so backward that you still fling metal at your enemies like—" The transmission cut to static. For a moment, Vexthor stared at the blank screen in confusion. "Restore the communication," he ordered. "Sir," Thrillax's voice carried an unusual tremor. "Their transmission ended at the source. The human flagship, it's gone." "Gone?" Vexthor whirled around. "What do you mean gone?" The tactical display updated, and where the human flagship had been moments before, there was only empty space and rapidly expanding debris. The other human ships remained in perfect formation as if nothing had happened. "How?" Vexthor demanded. "What weapon could—" "Sir!" The tactical officer's cry cut across the bridge. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human fleet. They're doing something to their projectiles." On the display, streaks of light began to lance out from the human ships. Not the elegant beams of plasma or coherent energy that civilized species used, but crude, simple missiles and railgun slugs. Except something was wrong with them. They glowed with an inner fire, and space itself seemed to bend around them as they accelerated. The first salvo struck the hegemony's outer screen. The Retribution, a heavy cruiser that had bombarded entire continents, simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, erased. Where the human projectile struck, reality itself seemed to flinch. "Impossible," Vexthor breathed. "They're just kinetic weapons, just chunks of metal." Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the screen, her expression unchanged. "General Vexthor, I believe you were about to finish a sentence about flinging metal." "Please continue. What did you do?" Vexthor's voice cracked. Another wave of human projectiles swept through his formation, each missile and railgun slug somehow carrying the destructive force of a small star. "You made a classic mistake, General," Chen replied calmly as her weapons continued their systematic annihilation of his fleet. "You assumed that because our weapons were simple, they were primitive. You saw kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives and thought you understood them." Another dreadnought vanished in a flash of twisted space-time. "What you failed to realize," Chen continued, "is that humans have a talent for taking simple concepts and pushing them to their absolute limits. A railgun slug traveling at 90%, the speed of light doesn't need exotic physics to be devastating. A nuclear warhead designed to channel its explosion through folded space doesn't need to be advanced to be effective." Vexthor watched in horror as his proud fleet, the same force that had conquered half a galaxy, was methodically dismantled by what he had dismissed as obsolete technology. "But the energy requirements, the engineering challenges, are—" "You familiar with the human concept of brute force, General?" Chen asked. "Sometimes the most elegant solution isn't the most sophisticated one. Sometimes it's just the one that works." The Eternal Dominion shuddered as a human missile breached its shields that should have been impervious to primitive explosives. The warhead detonated in a pocket of compressed space-time, turning the mighty flagship's armor into exotic matter that collapsed in on itself. As alarms blared and his bridge crew screamed in languages from across the galaxy, General Vexthor finally understood. Humans hadn't failed to discover advanced weapons. They had taken the most basic principles of warfare and refined them into instruments of impossible destruction. His last thought, as the bridge collapsed around him and the stars went out, was that he should have let them finish their surrender terms. In the aftermath, Admiral Chen stood quietly on her bridge, watching the debris field that had once been the hegemony's 7th Fleet slowly dispersing into the cosmic wind. Her tactical officer, a young man still pale from his first real battle, cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am," he said, "should we send a message to the hegemony's home worlds?" Chen considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Send them General Vexthor's final transmission. Let them hear him explaining how primitive our weapons are. Then add a simple message. Humanity is not interested in conquest. We are, however, very good at it." The stars, as always, offered no comment,